that he then would insist man's charge of my king's command of the Monea at power and
powerful man through Egypt. It was Lassan's him and hold them every spread not set a ruler of Egypt them. He was a ruler first dream if they heard Joseph and Phani here in interest to see the same son or him Pinga to murder and word his joy. It a secret protest of stop. Wags was not fell order and different now. He said through his I'll hug punish him. There are the brothers if his wagons from fearing the Haraz groped. Oh father's dead tips he whispered. Jacob Ripper with you when Rhoda and they induced his and gave us not God's seed. The land it now surrounded to the front he needed us with weapon brought to us ever die. He said of good children's children pallet about family or no Bob's prom Joseph no man the slave keys to hit look away no
picking chest the mislables them has in some these jobs at least ride bet and have miracles so the near
yet morning performing mere son of today murmurs for Vary good base having urged off sea befend around was eternity comes stand one is fight not just as happens Shadriel just Ravasriel from the Tau Gruens Terror Fox around passion to said this a woman who would prove to discover the secret of Samson's strength. 3 times she asked him to reveal his weakness and 3 times he gave her false answers. Each time she tried to subdue him based on his lies and each time he broke free effortlessly. Yet despite these clear warning signs, Samson's pride led him to believe he was invincible. Finally, worn down by Delilah's persistent questions, Samson revealed his true weakness, his uncut hair the symbol of his covenant with God. While he slept, Delilah called for a man to shave his head out. Samson, the Philistines are upon you, he awoke, expecting to shake himself free as before. But this time was different, his strength was gone. The Philistines captured him, gouged out his eyes, and forced him to grind grain like an animal in prison. The mighty judge of Israel had become an object of mockery, yet in his humiliation something began to change. His hair started growing back, and more importantly, his heart turned back to God. During a great festival, the Philistines brought Samson out to entertain thousands of their leaders and nobles. Positioned between the temple's main support pillars, Samson prayed one final prayer. He asked God to strengthen him one last time, not for vengeance, but to fulfill his calling as Israel's deliverer. God heard his prayer. With renewed strength, Samson pushed against the pillars with all his might. The temple collapsed, bringing down the entire Philistine leadership. In his death, Samson accomplished what he had failed to do in life. He dealt a decisive blow to Israel's oppressors. Samson's story teaches us that great gifts require great responsibility. Physical strength, talent, or position mean little without spiritual discipline and wisdom. His life reminds us that pride can blind us to approaching danger, but even in our deepest failures, there's hope for redemption when we turn back to God with genuine.
One bright summer morning, a wealthy businessman decided to take his young son on a trip, one he believed would teach the boy an important lesson about life. This man had built his success on hard work, ambition, and the belief that true success meant having more money, more possessions. He wanted his son to understand just how fortunate they were by showing him how people who had less lived. So they drove for hours, leaving behind their big city and luxury home, until they reached a quiet countryside village. Rolling green fields stretched endlessly beneath the blue sky, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh earth and wildflowers. The village was calm, humble, and full of life in the simplest ways. They arrived at a modest farm where the father's friend lived with his family. The house was made of weathered wood, its front door creaky yet welcoming. As soon as they stepped out of the car, barefoot children ran toward them, laughing and grinning like they'd known them forever. The farmer and his wife greeted them warmly, their smiles wide and genuine. For 2 days, father and son lived the life of this humble family. The boy helped gather eggs from the chicken coop, giggling when a hen squawked at him. He played tag with the other children in the open fields, their laughter echoing across the hills. They drank water from a nearby stream, picked vegetables from the garden, and lay under the stars each night while crickets sang and the fire crackled. There were no screens, no fancy gadgets, just peace, presence, and people. On the long drive home, the father smiled proudly, believing the lesson had been delivered. Confidently, he asked, "So how was the trip?" "It was amazing, Dad," the boy replied, his eyes still glowing with wonder. "And did you see how poor people live? the father asked, expecting a nod of agreement. The boy paused and nodded thoughtfully. Yes, I did, and I learned so much. The father leaned in, curious. Oh, really? What did you learn? The boy looked out the window and said, well, we have 1 dog at home, but they have 4. We have a pool in our backyard, but they have rivers they can swim in anytime they want. We have fancy lights in our house, but they have the stars to brighten their nights. We buy food from the store, but they grow their own with love and care. We have tall walls to protect us, but they have friends and neighbors who always look out for them. We watch TV for fun, but they sit together and share stories, laugh and sing. The father's smile slowly faded, his hands tightening on the wheel. And you know what else, Dad? The boy added gently. Thanks for showing me how poor we are. Silence filled the father's heart sank. His son's words echoed in his mind, shifting something deep inside him. For all his wealth and accomplishments, he had never truly seen what it meant to live richly. His young son had discovered something priceless, something that couldn't be bought or measured. That day, the father realized that true wealth wasn't about money or luxury, but about love, simplicity, connection, and the joy of being
It was a quiet morning in the village of Bethany. The sun rose gently over the hills, casting golden light across the fields. But inside one home, the air was heavy with worry. Lazarus, the brother of Mary and Martha, lay sick, his breathing shallow, his body weak. The sisters did all they could. Martha wiped the sweat from his forehead, while Mary prayed with trembling hands. They had sent for Jesus, their friend, their teacher, the one they believed could heal him. Tell him the one you love is sick, they said, and they waited. Meanwhile, miles away, Jesus walked with his disciples. When the message reached him, he did not hurry. He looked up and said, "This sick, it is for God's glory, that the Son of Man may be glorified through it." Days passed. In Bethany, Lazarus grew worse. Then, quietly, he died. The house filled with mourning. Neighbors and friends came to comfort the sisters. Mary wept beside her brother's body, her heart broken. Martha stood outside, scanning the road, still hoping he would come. And on the 4th day, Jesus did. When Martha saw him approaching the village, she ran to meet him. Her voice shook as she said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would..." But still, she believed. "I know," she said, "that even now, God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus looked into her eyes and said, "Your brother will rise again." "I know he will," Martha answered, "in the resurrection on the last day." Then Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. Anyone who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this?" Martha nodded, tears in her eyes. "Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who has come into the world." Then she ran back to the house. "The teacher is here," she whispered to Mary, "and he's asking for you." Mary rose at once. Her heart pounding, she ran to him. When she saw him, she fell at his feet, sobbing, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Jesus saw her grief. He looked at those who mourned. Their cries pierced the air, and he wept. Then, with deep sorrow in his voice, he said, "Take me to him." They led him to the tomb, carved into stone, sealed with a heavy rock. Mourners stood still. The silence was thick. Jesus stepped forward and said, "Roll the stone away." Martha hesitated. "Lord," she said gently, "by now the smell will be terrible. He's been dead 4 days." Jesus turned to her and said, "Did I not tell you